Sister Morphine, when are you coming round again?
Sister Morphine was her next single. Marianne Faithfull's new image as a fallen angel meant the song would provoke another howl of outrage from the press.
Sister Morph, when I wrote it with Mick, of course, I mean, I didn't write it on my own. He was very important in it. It was something we did together, which was particularly lovely, that we had a sort of shared project, and it was very important to us both. And then it came out, and it was taken off out of the shops after 2 days, shock horror, and treated as a pro-drug song, which it wasn't. It was a story about somebody, about a man in a hospital dying from a car accident.
Tell me, Sister Morphine, how long have I been lying here?
I did notice that when the Stones recorded Sister Morphine and put it on Sticky Fingers, no one batted an eyelid. That might have been when I first realised that there were completely different rules for men and women.
And you can sit around and you can watch the clean white sheets stain red.
Smarting from press criticism of her music, she turned to a new career in theatre, first starring in an acclaimed production of Chekhov's The Three Sisters, then taking on a demanding role as Hamlet's Ophelia.
The time it started to get hard, because I was playing such a complicated role, was when I was doing Hamlet. That's when I started to get really sucked into depression and sadness.
She would do heroin during the intermission and then go on in the last half of this performance as this stoned-out, pale, pre-Raphaelite Ophelia, which must have been one of the most amazing embodiments of the mad Ophelia that you can imagine, and absolutely perfect for the 60s.
Yeah, she was good. And she played Ophelia mad particularly well.
Kind sister, sweet Ophelia.
They bore him barefaced on the bier. Sing, hey nonny, nonny, hey nonny, and in his grave rained many a tear. Fare you well, my dove. Oh, how the wheel becomes it.
The pressures of celebrity and notoriety began to take their toll on her relationship with Mick Jagger.
Being the sort of kept plaything of a great rock star wasn't really my destiny. I did know that. The unfortunate thing was that I really loved him, and if we'd been in any other situation except the gilded cage, we could have had a wonderful life together. But the gilded cage wasn't really my bag at all.
It is absurd to live in a cage. You know there's got to be something better.
You know, it increased. Marianne and Mick, as he always has done, like to go to these very fancy dinners with aristocracy, and half the time Marianne would end up with her head in the soup plate. So he stopped taking her. She stayed at home, took more drugs.
I think the drugs were used by me as a way of suppressing my natural spirit. And it worked. You know, that's something that happens if you take heroin. You don't speak. You don't want to speak. You're just sort of blank. So it helped me to become a blank. And I wasn't at all a blank. By then, I was doing almost everything I could to push him away. And he was telling me that I wasn't going to be able to, that it was going to be much harder than I thought. And it was.
Mick and Marianne went to Australia. Mick was cast as Ned Kelly, the Australian bandit. And when they were there, about 2 days, Marianne took an overdose of sleeping pills.
Miss Faithfull is in a deep coma in hospital today and is expected to remain in that condition for some considerable time. A new bulletin on her condition will be issued within the next few hours. She's being treated for an overdose of barbiturates and is in the intensive care unit of a leading Sydney hospital.
How are you now? How do you feel?
Much better, thank you.
What is it like being here, Marianne, in the hospital?
Very nice hospital.
How soon will you be going back?
I don't know.
How are you feeling?
Although her life is no longer in immediate danger, she's still very seriously ill, and doctors fear she may have sustained brain damage.
After taking 150 sleeping pills and being in a coma for 6 days and coming out okay, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get out that easy. The moment I realized how much I loved this man, I also realized that somebody like Mick couldn't have a woman round him who was on drugs. It was dangerous. It would destroy everything he'd worked for. It was a negative influence. And I loved him very much. I didn't want to do that. It's easier for me to say our relationship broke up because of drugs than to admit the truth, which is our relationship couldn't work because I didn't know how to have it. I didn't know what to do. I think it's basically a lack of trust, isn't it?
Her relationship with Mick Jagger was over. Marianne didn't know where to go next.
I lived with my mother for a year or so after I split up with Mick, and it was very difficult. And at one point, I must have just decided I couldn't do it anymore. And I came up to London and decided to see what would happen.
Well, she used to come quite regularly and stay with me. I mean, she was a real handful in those days. One time I came home and I opened the front door and there's water cascading down the stairs. Marianne was lying in the bath and the water's up to here and the taps are full on, and she's got this arm out and she's just slowly sloping the arm right out. And I pulled the arm and of course it was full of soap and I stood back and smacked my head on the loo and knocked myself clean out. I was furious. The ceiling came down, the carpets were ruined, it was an absolute nightmare. And she just moved from place to place. No home, staying in squats, mainly with other heroin addicts.
I found this spot where I could actually be and not be bothered by anybody. And it was just tucked, it doesn't exist anymore, of course. It was a wall of an old bombed-out building. And I didn't really need much.
And then Marianne was in really bad shape. So I thought, time for Nicholas, come live with me sort of thing. So we had to sort of take her to court. And, it was pretty unpleasant.
I did actually say that... terrible thing, because she was my dearest friend, that she was an unfit mother, but she was at the time.
Nicholas has told me himself that the moment where he was taken away from me and was taken off to live with John, and this is very tough, but this is what he said, it was as if the lights went out. I must have really started smoking joints and having an odd line of coke at 19, 20. And then I was living on the street as a heroin addict with a needle in my arm by 23. That's pretty fast.